I'm not sure if you were able to catch any football on Thanksgiving, but did you happen to see the Jack White halftime show?
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, I caught parts of that game, but I did not get to watch the halftime show, which I was kind of bummed about.
It was. I mean, you know me. I'm a bit of a Jack White fan, and so like anything that he does, I'm like, yes, please, please more, please, please. But like it was structured well. Like he opened with like one of his newer songs, and he ended with Seven Nation Army. But like he only did 3 songs. Granted, the middle song. Have you heard about the collab?
I did hear about the collab. I don't know what they did, but I did hear what happened.
Oh, okay. So like he kicks into Hello Operator, and you hear like the go left, go left, go left, right, left. I'm like, wait, something's gonna happen here. And then like after he does the opening verse, he brings out Eminem, and they do a mashup of Hello Operator and Till I Collapse. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay, yeah. It was completely mind like blowing, and I really was just like, I need more of this in my veins. So even though it was like a really like really good halftime show, like I wanted more because it was only 3 songs. I know it's like Thanksgiving Day halftime, and it's not like the Super Bowl halftime show, but something about me is I can't be satisfied.
No, you really can't.
And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcast on all sides of planet Earth. And the way that we measure that distinction is we travel to Ukraine and we go all the way to Uganda, but we take the long way around because we go that extra mile for you, dear listener. This podcast is called Hey, Listen to This. And it is hosted by 2 dashingly good-looking men who share the same middle name. I am the one. I am the only. I am the one who is forever going to be patting his past self on the back for making sure that he has enough rock salt for the first proper snowfall of winter here in southwestern Pennsylvania. Ryan James Kearns.
And I am the one, the only, the I don't know how much rock salt I can obtain because I don't think I'm going to be prepared for winter working in northwest Pennsylvania, Matthew James Durzik. And for those of you who don't know what we do here on Hey, Listen to This, it's pretty much right there in the title. It's Hey, Listen to This. And what we listen to are music albums every week. Ryan and I will collide on an album of either of our choosing. We'll go through the tracks piece by piece, note by note, find out what we like, what we don't like, and what we thought could be improved. And then at the end of the show, we not only give a rating out of 10 about the album we just reviewed, but we also recommend albums based off of the album we just reviewed. Speaking of albums we reviewed, Ryan, what was the review we did last time, and what was the album we chose?
It was our 100th full-length review, and that album that we chose was one of the biggest albums that we ever covered on Hey, Listen to This, and that would be Abbey Road by the Beatles. And for me, it goes without saying, it was a good time. Diving into that album. I'm always going to be a fan of anything that the Beatles does. I'm not really so much of a super fan. I don't have Paul McCartney's face tattooed on my forearm right here. So, but I mean, otherwise, always a fun time diving into a classic record for the purposes of this podcast here. How about you, Matthew? What were your thoughts about doing Abbey Road by the Beatles?
Well, again, not to spoil too much, because if you want to hear our full thoughts and feelings on Abbey Road, you can go check out that episode right now or at the end of this one. But, yeah, I'll just say that I agree that I enjoyed it quite a bit, too. Abbey Road is always a blast to hear, and it was a blast to talk about for a change. So I'm finally glad we got to cover the lads from Liverpool on this show.
That being said, Matthew, I know the reason why we're here today. We have to press on. We've done 100 full-length reviews. We got to press on to the next 100 and even more. That being said, what did we talk about today, this week? I mean, for those of why don't you tell the listener out there who can't read the episode title, and me, who has properly prepared for this episode. Hopefully, it'll be funny if I was flying by the seat of my pants, just making up crap as I go along. But rest assured, I came prepared.
I came prepared as well, and I will tell the listeners that the album that we are going to be covering this week for our 101st album review is an album from 1977 by bluesman Muddy Waters entitled Hard Again. And I figured for 101, we'll go back to a little bit of 101, a little bit of back to basic stuff, and cover some blues. Now, for those of you who are wondering, hold on, what is a Muddy Waters? Well, on the one hand, you might be living under a rock, but on the other hand, not so much, because it feels like the blues is one of those genres that has somewhat faded out of the mainstream. Like, obviously, when you talk about influences, you're talking about bands like the band we just covered, the Beatles, or acts like Simon and Garfunkel. R&B groups have their influences in like James Brown and Motown. But their influences, in a sense, or one of their influences, is the man we're going to be talking about today, and that is Muddy Waters, who has been considered to be a pioneer of blues. And he is often cited as the father of modern Chicago blues. And I will get into who Muddy Waters is, do a brief overview, and then I'll throw it to you, Ryan, to talk about your experience. So, the man, known as Muddy Waters, was born McKinley Morganfield back in, people are guessing, 1913. Now, the 1913 part is the part that I think everybody agrees on. Everything else is pretty much up in the air, because it shows that he was born in Issaquah County, Mississippi. Where at in Issaquah County? What day was it? Not sure, because it says April 4th, but it could be any time back then, because data records for those living in the poor parts of Mississippi and the South were not quite as known back in that day. But however he came to be through, the act of mating, he then grew up and learned how to play guitar and started to learn blues from a couple of different blues artists who were getting big at the time. Most notably, the man they call the father of the blues, like altogether, the legendary Robert Johnson. He of Mysticism, and he of the 27 Club. So once he started to pick up the blues from him, then he gets into his own solo career roughly around the late 40s. Before then, he had done some stuff with Alan Lomax to do some recordings for the Library of Congress, fascinatingly enough, but didn't become popular until the late 40s, early 50s. And he started having blues hits such as Hoochie Coochie Man, and Rolling Stone, and Got My Mojo Working, just to name a few. And his style of blues was very sort of down and dirty compared to a lot of the pop music that was of the time. Like, you think about the 40s and 50s, you're thinking about, the very early Sinatra years, basically your Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, post-World War II type of jazz singer standards, etc. But underneath, there was this little bit of a rumbling going on, where you had artists like Muddy Waters, Fats Domino, I'll even throw Ike Turner in there, sort of laying the foundation for a harder type of blues that would eventually become known as rock and roll. So much so that one of his songs, one of Muddy Waters' songs, Rolling Stone, was the inspiration for a certain band to take their name. I'll let you figure out what that is. You can do your own research. But after rock and roll came to be, Muddy Waters just kind of kept on keeping on. He had some later hits with the album At Newport 1960 and Folk Singer, which I both believe were on the Rolling Stone 500 Greatest Albums at some point. I don't know if they're there now, but that's another discussion for another day. And all these English blues artists that became rock and rollers, they started to really appreciate the stylings of both Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Willie Dixon, and you could hear that in bands like Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Cream, who were really heavily intent on making their own kind of heavy stuff based off the heaviness of their influences. So, fast forward to 1977. At this point, Muddy Waters is in his mid-60s. And I'm not talking like he's 60 or 61. No, he's in his mid-60s. He was born in 1913, and we are at 1977. So he is roughly 63, 64 years old. In comes one of his disciples, a guitarist by the name of Johnny Winter from Texas, who decides, hey, Muddy, I like your music. Let's go cut a record. And Muddy said, sure, all right. And thus, we lead to the project that we are talking about today, which is Hard Again. Now, before I get into my delvings with Muddy Waters, Ryan, I will throw it to you as to your history with Muddy Waters before today's episode.
So, truth be told, it's going to be pretty brief in terms of like my history, in terms of like my background with Mr. Muddy Waters. I view him along the same lines of like B.B. King, for example. Like, hey, I know that this is a notable blues artist. I couldn't tell you one of their songs. Like, to be honest with you, do you know this? Well, I don't know if the song that was playing over the speakers at Mad Mex the other day when we went out, just you, me, your fiance, and your brother, and I was just like, "What song is this?" She's like, "I can tell you exactly what song this is. This is blah blah blah." By Muddy Waters, which might have like had a little bit of like inspiration for the episode here today.
Just a little bit.
However, with Muddy himself, like I said, don't know him whatsoever in terms of like any songs that he's done specifically. I know he's a notable blues artist, and blues has always been a genre that I've always wanted to dive headfirst into, just to check out what is there to offer for me. So yeah, that's basically it. I hate to be so brief, and as a matter of fact, being like I'm a complete novice, but a spade is a spade, and that's what I am, man. I'm a complete novice when it comes to Mr. Waters himself. How about you, Matthew? Do you have a little bit more background with him? I hope so, considering that you were able to pull one of his songs, identify one of his songs over the loudspeaker of Mad Max the other night. But anyways, I digress. Matthew, the floor is yours. Tell me about your experience with Muddy Waters.
Well, to be completely honest, it's probably not too far off from you. So my experiences with Muddy Waters is a little bit minimal too. Like, I probably would never have gotten into the blues if not for my 10th grade English class. And my teacher, Mrs. Gall, who was teaching us about the experiences of like Black Americans and the history of them. I think we were reading Birmingham, which was a novel about the civil rights movement and living down in Alabama. And somehow that turned into a study on the blues where I started to learn about, all these artists that had done some songs I was familiar with because this coincided oh so coincidentally with my classic rock phase. And hey, I could piece these together. This band did that song by that guy, and this band did that song by that guy. So that's when I first started learning about artists like Muddy Waters, Robert Johnson especially, I learned about, and how songs that were written in the 30s and 40s were pretty much considered as dirty then as I don't know, Sabrina Carpenter now. But yeah, that was sort of my introduction to the blues, but it never became something that stuck with me. Like, it'd be one of those things where I'd hear a blues song every once in a while and be like, okay, that's some good stuff, but never really, really delve onto it. But you mentioned the song that I had overheard at Mad Mex. It's going to be the first song we're going to be talking about on this album because it is the first song on this album. I was familiar with that song through a couple of mediums, most notably, first off, the movie that I made you choose last week, which was Goodfellas, as compared to Wolf of Wall Street. But more prominently, a coworker of mine by the name of Mike Romai, he would start his Friday shows every once in a while with that song. And I remember the one morning he played it, and I was just like, okay, all right, this is something I gotta like remember. This is a song I gotta jot down for future memory because I was grooving out to it. And so that kind of also inspired the choice. Now, for full disclosure, and I usually don't share this with the audience or the listeners, but the other option would have been an album based off a song from The Wolf of Wall Street, which was Smokestack Lightning from Howlin' Wolf. So we would have been doing Moanin' in the Moonlight. But I am perfectly fine with covering Muddy Waters for reasons I will get into in a little bit.
And I'm perfectly happy diving into Muddy Waters. Like, I would have been opposed to diving into some Howlin' Wolf, but, in my code of what I believe and my personal taste, fuck the movie Wolf of Wall Street. That movie is a piece of garbage. But anyways, this is not a movie podcast where I have controversial movie takes, apparently. This is a music podcast where I guess I have controversial takes sometimes. So without any further ado, Matthew, are you ready to kick us off here with the opening track on the album that we're talking about here today? And that track is Mannish Boy.
Absolutely. I am ready to talk about Mannish Boy. And immediately, you get this level of confidence from a 64-year-old man that most people probably don't have in their mid-20s. You just get that pseudo acapella opening where he's singing about how everything's gonna be all right, and you get little licks of guitar from Johnny Winter and little yelps also from Johnny Winter. So it feels very gospel-y, very opening of a sermon, and then after about 20-30 seconds, bam, the band kicks in. And we've talked a lot of this show before about simplicity. I don't know if you get more simplistic than one chord, because that's what this song is. This song is one chord for 5 minutes, and that is a very interesting move. Now, that being said, it's also a very good move because it almost feels like the riff they do at the end of each line, that da-da-da-da-da, is almost like a rapid-fire chord change in and of itself. So it goes through chords, loops around, and goes back to the beginning. And it's that kind of lick that people are familiar with, whether you've listened to some older blues songs or, heaven forbid, watch an episode of Family Guy that references this song. You're probably familiar with that da-da-da-da-da, or Bad to the Bone, I guess, would be the prime example of a song that copied this one in a sense. But the confidence that Muddy Waters has throughout the song, talking about being, this young boy, and now he's a man, and he's going to have his fun, and he is a man, he's a Rolling Stone, he's a natural-born lover man, he's a hoochie-coochie man. Like, this is stuff that is very boastful, and not just from a sexual perspective, but also from a socio-political perspective, because this song was originally written in the 50s, where men like Muddy Waters didn't quite have as many civil rights as, for lack of a better term, the white guys. And he kind of wrote this song as both a statement to say, hey, I'm a man, I count in this society, and also, hey, I'm a man, and all the ladies will step aside for Mr. Muddy Waters. Now, some other things about this song, the engineering for a track like this is just absolutely immaculate. Because what they decided to go for on this album was, even though it was a studio album, it was not a live album, they went for a live feel. So you could hear Muddy being up front and everybody sort of blending in together at the right moments. And while everything is loud and punchy, nothing dominates, nothing gets in the way of Muddy. And granted, that might be the song structure where it's basically meant for him to take a vocal and the band does their da-da-da-da-da. And that works so well too. And the band is just doing some really good stuff. The drums sound amazing. The bass sounds good. James Cotton does a great job on the harp. And Johnny Winter is having the time of his life. Playing guitar, screaming randomly. He is in heaven on this song. And realistically, who could blame him? Because this song flat out just kicks ass. So, full disclosure, I have a top 3 and a bottom nothing. And as you probably could have guessed if you are a longtime listener of Hey, Listen to This, based on my descriptions of this song, this is in my top 3, and it stands at the mountaintop. We get things started with my song at number 1.
Excellent choice, man. Excellent choice. If I'm not mistaken, I think Mannish Boy is the most popular song off the record, according to my brief research. I mean, even comparing play counts on YouTube Music. This one has 54 million plays, and the rest have they're in the thousands. So
Right.
it's probably the most popular because it was featured in that Goodfellas movie that led us to reviewing this album here today. So for me, a lot of the points and things that you pointed out, I agree with 100%. Just gonna go over a couple of the beats that I have here. So you talk about that, that traditional old school blues riff, dun 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 dun. Dear listener, if you have never seen The Office, whenever this song came on, I was picturing a moment after Michael unfortunately breaks up with his girlfriend at the time. For those of you who are fans of the show, you know what exactly the scene I'm talking about. They're driving back. Michael is sad. Daryl's just he's noticing that Michael's sad and he wants to be a good friend, and he's just hey, whenever I'm sad, I like to sing the blues. So here's what I do. I'm gonna give you a beat and you're gonna come in, and hilarity ensues. But that beat is very much the crux of that moment, and it's the crux of this song here, and it fucking rules. I'm not even gonna lie. It's cliche, but it the way that they're able to execute the feel and just the absolute raw power of that beat, it overpowers any cliche aspects of that beat. You can hold a candle to it. I mean, again, this record came out in the late 70s, so it's not it came out 2 years ago. I digress. So outside of that that hardcore blues beat, that intro that you referenced where you get that bare vocals and it just seems they're warming up right before that sludgy blues beat comes in, and I love that, and especially for Johnny Winters just coming out and being the hype guy throughout all this. I was just I want that job. I just want to be yelling in the background of just really just feeling the emotion. I feel like I could do a very good job at that. So yeah, outside of those moments, I mean, I hate to say it, that's pretty much the song in a nutshell. I do like the little guitar moments that you get that are sprinkled throughout the song. There's way too many to pinpoint. It's just they could have stuck with that guitar, that blues beat until the cows came home, and they would have been just as effective. But the fact that you get those like little licks here or there are pretty nice and pretty great. The lyrics are great. I'm not gonna really dive so much into the lyrics in this album here because like I feel like with this album it's more about the instrumentals and the performances that they bring to the table. However, I like the with this song here specifically and how like Waters is trying to prove that he's a man. He's not a boy anymore. He's a man's man. Like one set of lyrics that really stood out to me and made me kind of laugh was, "I could make love to you, woman, in 5 minutes time." I'm like, okay, that's not a brag, man. That's not a brag. Oh man, but yeah, the only thing I gotta mention about Mannish Boy is, for those of you who aren't aware, apparently, this arrangement of Mannish Boy is an answer song to a Bo Diddley song. And that song is called "I Am a Man." So, and for those of you who are like, whoa, hold on. I don't want to Google anything, Ryan. What is an answer song? Well, dear listener, it's not that hard to figure out. It's like, Bo Diddley made a song called "I'm a Man," and Muddy Waters was just like, here's a song called "Mannish Boy" in response. So, like, like back in the day, in the like the I don't want to say the formative years of YouTube, but like back in the day that you used to be able to like leave video responses. That's essentially that concept there. Only other thing I got to say about Mannish Boy before we kick it on over to Bus Driver here is it did land in my top 3, and for full disclosure, very much like you, I have a top 3 and a bottom nothing, and also like you, we are starting out of the gate lightning hot. Mannish Boy is my favorite song off the whole album.
Way to bring back some deep archives with YouTube video responses. That is part of the past I had forgot about entirely. But yeah. Couple other things about Mannish Boy. First of all, you mentioned "I'm a Man" by Bo Diddley being the song this responded to. First of all, again, if you don't know what a response is, just look up "Not Like Us" and you'll sort of get an idea of what we're talking about. "Beat the Grams" also works, but that's another feud for another time. The song "I'm a Man," ironically enough, was covered by multiple artists in the 60s, particularly Chicago on their debut album, and the Spencer Davis Group a couple years before that. I think the Yardbirds also did a version of their own, but that could be something different. That's all aside the point. Actually, I think the one the Yardbirds did was this one, and I could be wrong. I'll double check that later. The point is, one last thing I want to say about Mannish Boy is that for a song that just sort of repeats for 5 minutes again, it sounds so great throughout, and at the very end, you get Muddy Waters just going, "Don't hurt me, don't hurt me, don't hurt me." And the band already sounding as intense as possible even gets more intense, particularly the drums just going on with Big Eye Smith raising things just a little bit before they close things out. And you're just like, man, they just really just kicked ass the whole way through. It's just a wonderful, wonderful piece of music.
Absolutely, man. I absolutely agree. And like when it came to forming my top 3, like a lot of the songs are basically, I mean, this might be a little bit of spoiler alert here. Like, I could have easily like rearranged my top 3 in any specific order, but after like further reflection, I'm like, nah, Mannish Boy. Like, if I had to say, hey, what's the one song that you should listen from this album if you want to like determine if you want to dive into the rest of it, it's Mannish Boy. It's pretty easy from there. Now, what are my second and third favorite tracks? Well, let's find out together here, with maybe this next track landing in my top 3. We're about to find out about that, and the next track is Bus Driver. So with Bus Driver here, we get another style of blues like we shift gears on a sonic palette, kind of, because instead of getting like that hard blues that we got in Mannish Boy, here we get what I describe as drunken blues, like blues that you can really just like picture that being done at a bar. Like everything's kind of like, it's almost just like it's a little behind, but they're really in their feels. And I mean, I always appreciate that kind of like performance from on a musician standpoint. So with Bus Driver here specifically, diving a little further in, like one thing I loved about the song is just the layers of instrumentation here are great. Now it's not like quite as layered as like Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, like how we discussed that album like a few reviews back. But here, like every instrument is doing very interesting things and like really good performances that you can find throughout. Like you get piano, harmonica, drums, bass, and guitar. They're all doing really creative stuff, and I really like what they're bringing to the table. They're really doing a good job creating that feel, that drunken feel that I described. And like the lyrics here, like they really, again, don't matter so much. I mean, for those of you who want, like at least a brief synopsis of what the song is about. The song's about how a bus driver stole Waters' woman. That's basically it. So, I mean, one lyric that I did highlight was, he used to give her rides in the daytime. Now she gives him rides at night. Wink, wink. Now judge if you know what that means. But, yeah. And for me, like, I just appreciated throughout the song how you were able to get moments of instrumentation that that we're allowed to breathe and just at least just ride the groove and the feel. Like, I often reference like that kind of notion. Like the first review that we done where I reference that kind of like moment in songs and music is when we did the Cure review way back when. Shout out to that review. That was a great review. So, like, outside of just really just allowing the instrumentation to breathe and just what they're bringing to the table, like, about the halfway mark, we get sort of a guitar solo. But one thing that I noticed about that solo, it's very much in the vein of what I think traditional blues in this style is supposed to be like, in that it's not there to show off skill, it's more there to establish melody and feeling, and I absolutely love that. Because if you're able, I don't want to say anybody can do a Dragon Force through the fire and flames like guitar solo, but like for me, like I think it's more impactful if you can get me to feel something as opposed to be like, I'm very fast, I'm so fast, I can go somewhere very fast, and yeah, just like. Like within that guitar solo, like the backing band's doing interesting stuff, but the guitar is doing interesting stuff in its solo in its own right. Like it's almost writing moments like on top of the band, and then around the 3/4 mark of the song, the harmonica takes the focus of the song, and then the piano takes a turn, and like they're each doing really interesting stuff. But one thing I do love is just the passing of the baton, between the guitar, the piano, and then the guitar, the harmonica, and the piano. Like they're all doing great stuff. So yeah, I'm a fan of Bus Driver. It did not land on my top 3, but it's a great song nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. First of all, you're right about this being a sonic change because we get from what was considered a stop time blues, where they just repeated the chord over and over in that one riff, to more of a traditional 12-bar blues, which majority of this album, I would say, is, where you have 3 chords that you go through. And if you know the 12-bar blues pattern, you kind of understand what you're going for. And lyrically, yeah, it's about a bus driver who steals Muddy Waters' wife and gives him rides at night, and again, the great thing about classic blues tracks is that, if you have any idea of metaphors and innuendo, it's not hard to decipher what these songs are about. They're about love gained, love lost, and loving y'all not, baby. Um, and Muddy sounds just as confident on this as he did on Mannish Boy, although one thing I did note is that the vocals didn't seem quite as front and center. And I think, again, that's part of the live feel they were going for, is because whenever it's just drums and vocals, the vocals can stand out pretty well. But when the whole band's involved, it all kind of blends in together. And I kind of nitpicked at that at first, but with repeated listens, I was like, no, this sounds fine. This is good stuff. It's just a solid straight blues song. Johnny Winter does a great job on guitar. Like, there's no denying, like, he is the driving force behind the song. And you mentioned how his solo wasn't really meant to show chops. I believe it was George Carlin who once said, a secret to playing the blues is not just how to play the notes, is understanding why they need to be played. And for Johnny Winter, being a disciple of the blues from Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson and Howlin' Wolf, etc., he understands that blues is about feel. And so it's about playing what you feel, not playing as fast as you can. Same goes with James Cotton on the harmonica. He does a really, really great job. I didn't think the piano stood out as much on this track as it did later tracks, but it sounds good too. And the whole band, like, they need to be commended for making a track that lasts 7 minutes, not drag in the slightest. Like, this one had momentum throughout. So yeah, I like Bus Driver too, but much like you, not in my top 3 either.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. And I'm curious to see what the other 2 tracks in your top 3 are going to be, because, like, unlike, well, I don't know, like, in the previous review that we did, like, we didn't share the same top 3. Like, I kind of went a little bit off script, and you yeah, anyways, like, I with an album like this, like, it's potentially wide open with what our top 3 can be, but. Yeah. Without any further ado, are you ready to go into the next track, which is I Want to Be Loved?
Yes, I Want to Be Loved. And we stick with the 12-bar blues format, but the key and the tempo change that drive I Want to Be Loved almost, but not quite, makes it feel like this is almost a pop song in a sense. Like compared to Bus Driver, which feels like it was recorded in a dusty bar somewhere in the south of Texas at 3 a.m. with nobody giving the slightest damn. Here it feels a little bit more on the professional side, which is to say a little bit more polished, but the way that the band is playing avoids that sheen altogether, because this is still a very heavy, dense instrumental performance, and a good one at that. And 2 guys I want to highlight particularly on this song. James Cotton, once again. Not only does he have a solid harmonica solo, but the way he riffs throughout the track to complement Waters' vocals, I thought was one of the biggest forces on this track. And the other guy is Big Eye Smith, who is the drummer throughout this album. And the way he performs on this track definitely stood out to me, because a lot of times with the blues, if you're a drummer, you're not in it to be Neil Peart or John Bonham. You're there to keep tempo and play and feel, just like we talked about with Winter on Bus Driver. And he did a good job on Mannish Boy as well, but he does another great job here, so I want to give him a shout out for that. Aside from that, though, this is the point in the album where things start to get a little on the repetitive side. Not in a bad way, because everything so far has been good, and it's just been one of those albums you just lay back and be like, that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. But did anything really stand out vocally or lyrically on this track? No, not really. I mean, it's another one of those tracks where you can kind of picture whatever it is that he's trying to say within the title and then just sort of get the first verse. We're like, okay, I know what this song's about. And then just enjoy the music, which is very, very enjoyable in and of itself. So I dug I Want to Be Loved, but it did not land in my top 3.
So, my feelings about I Want to Be Loved. One of the things that caught me right out of the gate in terms of like grabbing my attention and not letting go was just that beat, like how it focuses more on the offbeat. Like you get the da 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 da, like it's almost like hokey jokey, and I like it a lot. Like I was grooving along in my brain. I was picturing like Christopher walking, like just jant walking along to that beat. Like it was an interesting image in my brain. So like that was so good in my opinion. And like the two guys who you highlighted, the harmonica player and the drummer, like they do excellent performances. Like just establishing that beat, allowing it not to become stale, and just like really just locking everything in, but not with the precision aspect. It was more just like just locking it in terms of like establishing a proper feel. So excellent job there. And then the other thing I liked about the song as well was the cliff effect. And for those of you who are like, hold on, what's a cliff effect? Like, can you illustrate that to me? So like, there's moments in the song where you get like that groove, and then you get Muddy just popping out bare vocals for a second. And then the rest of the band kind of tumbles on in. So, like, I did like that quite a bit. That was very, very entertaining for my ears. And I agree with you. The harmonica solo is pretty solid. And I just appreciate, again, like, it's so easy for a backing band in this kind of setting just to step back and let the soloists do their thing. But no, the backing band's just jamming underneath and just really just embracing the feel. So shout out to them. And I'm not gonna really dive too much into the lyrics because like it's like you said, it's pretty self-evident. But like this is just a guy who wants to be loved. Now, you could maybe kind of dig a little bit into it in terms of like he wants to be loved. But I think here I would make the argument that this is more of just, hey, he just wants to be loved by this girl, like emotional affection, not like physical affection. So that's at least my take from it. I mean, I would almost want to say like that might be a naive take, like a Christian, schoolboy, take on it. But sometimes the and countless of them, countless amount of instances and previous reviews that we've done, I've dug into like further meanings in songs and being like, oh, this is just about sex. So I digress. The only other thing I gotta mention about I Want to Be Loved is, surprise, surprise, it did land in my top 3. And I Want to Be Loved takes, obviously not the top spot because that's already taken. It doesn't take the second spot. So that only leaves one more spot left. It is my third favorite track off the whole album.
I respect that. To me, you mentioned the sort of jokey riff at the beginning. I had kind of forgotten about that, but it does have this sort of like almost whimsical feel. Like, I'm not going to say that Barbra Streisand's going to cover this song, but at the same time, the avenue's kind of there. And because of that, you get this sort of lightheartedness mixed in with the heavy playing and the heavy delivery by Muddy, where you're right, you're not sure if the love that he wants is physical or emotional or perhaps, and most probably, both. So, yeah, it's pretty standard, but again, a song like this, I don't necessarily think he's trying to evoke feelings a la Robert Smith did on Pictures of You. Like, he is just sort of reciting just how he feels, and how he feels that he wants to be loved. And the band responds, and it sounds really good. Not good enough to land my top 3, but I am very happy to know that landed yours.
So I was shuffling on over to Jealous Hearted Man. Muddy Waters, he wants to be loved. Now he's a jealous hearted man. This is the way of the world, man. This is the way the world is. This is how the cookie crumbles. This is how the world turns. So, anyways, I can vamp on that for like 30 more minutes, I guess. So, with Jealous Hearted Man here, we get another shift in a blend of blues. And I feel like so far with the kind of different shifts that we've had so far, like one could make the argument that things might start to become a little bit stale, a little bit samey, a la my feelings about the Little Richard album that we covered, a few almost like a year ago at this point. Holy shit. Um, but, but here, I'm digging what's being brought to the table because they're not creating the same song again and again. They're doing different takes on things. My brain is able to separate it. Like, this is a different song. But one thing coming around the gate that I do want to talk about with Jealous Hearted Man is their harmonica, dude. Like, it's kind of going crazy in the background. Like, traditional, background instrumentation is just, able to, provide like a solid foundation for the vocalist or the lead instrument to do their thing. And if you really zoom in, if the musician is skilled enough, they are able to create interesting parts that reward focused listening. But here the harmonica is just nope, I'm just gonna do my own thing in the background. I'm just gonna go a little bit crazy and I don't care what you think about traditional roles within music here. I'm doing my thing. And I do like that a lot, man. I do like that a lot. One thing I did note here in Jealous Hearted Man is the line that Muddy says leading up into their harmonica solo. I always love when songs are structured like this, where it's almost just like the vocalist is springboarding into a solo based off of the cue to embrace that feeling. And that line leading up to the harmonica solo is "I don't play with nobody, boy," and it leads into a pretty nasty harmonica solo. Like, for me, it almost didn't sound like a harmonica solo at first. I was just like, wait, what the fuck is that, man? Is that guitar? Then, the solo developed a little bit more, and I was just like, oh, yeah, I love that, man. And then, after that harmonica solo, you get the line that leads into a brief guitar solo, which is, "Look here, Johnny, I got bad luck." And, I did appreciate that as well. And then, the third verse leads into another harmonica solo with the line, I'm awful mad, Johnny." So, I like the playful nature that Muddy's having with himself and the rest of the band. So good. I do appreciate that 100%. And that's basically my thoughts and feelings about Jealous Hearted Man as a whole. Other than that, the song is about Muddy dealing with feelings of suspicion that his wife is cheating on him. Good song. It did not land in my top 3.
So for me, Jealous Hearted Man, I'm glad you mentioned that Muddy is having the time of his life and having fun, because I mentioned that I picked up on the fact that he does sound great, and he sounds like he is delivering with every ounce of steam he has in him to sing that vocal. I do wish, kind of like Bus Driver, that his vocals were a little bit more pronounced engineering-wise. Again, I know they're going for a live feel, but it felt like I'll full disclosure, the first time I listened to this album, it was through my TV, through the YouTube app. The second and third times it was in my car. And both times I listened to my car, it sounded better than it did through the TV. So, again, if you're listening to an album, choose your speakers wisely. It will make a difference. That being said, Muddy does sound great on this track. I'll have to go back and listen to that harmonica solo, because I did note that James Cotton sounded great on this track. I didn't realize that he was so phenomenal that it was just almost like another instrument from another world on this track. But he sounds great. Johnny Winter sounds great. Big Eye Smith sounds great. Once again, the whole band just sounds great. And yeah, I really don't have much more to add because you pretty much covered all the bases with just the feel and the power behind the sort of fun nature of the song, despite the tense subject matter of feeling like someone's cheating on you. Like, the fact that Muddy could sing it like this proves he's been down this road before, both musically and thematically. He knows what he's talking about, so he can have a little bit of fun with it. Just cause like, huh, here we go again. So yeah, I appreciate the song quite a bit, but much like you, it did not land in my top 3 either.
That being said, man, I know the opening track was your favorite, but it seems like, you haven't identified any other favorite tracks, with the other tracks that we discovered off of side A, off the record here so far. So I'm hoping that, you could be satisfied enough to name I Can't Be Satisfied in your top 3. Is it in your top 3? Let's find out, man.
Let's find out. So I Can't Be Satisfied does close out side A, and right away I was able to tell that this track was a little bit different because the last few tracks were pretty much a swing beat through and through, whether it was the slow swing of Bus Driver or the more upbeat and lively swing of I Want to Be Loved. But I Can't Be Satisfied, I was caught off guard by it for a couple seconds because I was just like, what exactly is this? Because it almost felt like an acoustic funk. Like, it was very, very deep and very, very rootsy, and I really dug it a lot. Because while it did have that wild switch in timbre, it still maintained that blues chord progression of the 12-bar blues that makes you familiar with, this uncharted territory. And the guitar sounds great on it. Like, the acoustic guitar sounds great, and the band sounds great. But Muddy, man, like, his vocal is a lot more hushed on this track, and it works so well. Like, he's very much just sort of almost like you've heard the term tongue-in-cheek. He almost sounds like he has his tongue in his cheek whenever he's delivering this line, where he's like, well, I can't be satisfied. And you know that he is just grinning so hard while delivering it. So, yeah, like, he's taking a subject matter that, most traditional popsters would sort of be boo-hoo and melodramatic, and here comes the string section. But with the blues, part of, and this is something I learned back in my 10th grade English class, which I almost failed, but that's another story for another time, is that a lot of times the blues was meant to be sort of this musical gathering of, hey, I've had a tough time. Let's try to music our way into joy, for lack of a better term of words and phrases. Basically, it's just the musical equivalent of a bunch of guys getting together at a bar, a bunch of girls getting together at a bar, and being like, yeah, got my heart broke, lost everything. Hey, I'm still here. Let's party it up. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from, a lot of this album, but this song in particularly, because again, Muddy is singing about, not being able to be satisfied and just being sort of harumph towards everything. But he sings it with such this candid vigor that really stands out. So between that standout vocal and the switch up in the sonics from the swing to the acoustic funk, this one did stand out to me enough to land in my top 3. And we have, with I Can't Be Satisfied, my 3rd favorite song off of Hard Again.
Oh, man, I had no way to call that. I was just making a pun off of the title of the track there. But someone pick up the phone because I just called it, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so when I Can't Be Satisfied, so and my thoughts and feelings about the track, I'm right there with you with coming right out of the gate. Like, I did appreciate the almost like complete change up of like the instrumentational sound. Like, I did allude to a lot of the tracks off of side A having like different like shifts in blues, but they weren't the same. This is completely different. This is like almost just like almost like a bayou country kind of feel. So, anyways, so I do appreciate what's happening though. Like come right at the gate with just the bare guitars and like some percussion, like underneath everything. So good. And also, like you, I agree that the way that Waters sings here is just so good. Like I love like that line delivery that you alluded to. Like I can't be satisfied because he does it with such sass. Like the first time I listened to it and I like properly like zoomed in and focused on it, I was just like, oh yeah, that's funny, man. So outside of that. I alluded to the fact with a couple like one of the previous tracks off of side A that I do appreciate when a line in a song springboards a soloist into a solo. Here you get that throughout, like the solo that occurs within I Can't Be Satisfied, and that solo in its own right is just blues to a T that you've described here so far. Like it's playing the right notes with purpose, trying to guide the listener in with proper feel and intonation, and just really try to play with the melody. Like it's just so good, so impactful. And then all the while you get Waters saying like lines like "Play that thing for me, Johnny," and also like in order to keep the party going, Muddy says a line. You know what, Johnny? I hear you are pretty good. I want you to do it for me again. Will you? Like, I just love that. And I actually made it a point to just pause what I was doing in terms of listening and just writing down that line because it was just so fun, man. I can't help but chuckle at that. So, and also one thing that you did not elaborate on. Not so much, but like you didn't point out in your dissection about the track is you get the hype guy. You get Waters. Johnny Winters, shouting in the background again. Like so, shout out to the hype guy. You are my spirit animal. Another thing I do want to highlight though on the track is the lyrics are pretty dark at one point though because like you get lyrics. Keep in mind we talked about one of the previous songs being "Jealous Hearted Man," where Waters is singing about being suspicious about his significant other cheating on him. You get lyrics in "I Can't Be Satisfied" that are feel like snapping pistol in your face. I'm gonna let some graveyard lord be her resting place. Like he's talking about murdering somebody. So yeah, and all the while just doing a little joint key, juke joint kind of jam. So yeah, I thought that was clever, entertaining, well written. Only other thing I got to say about I Can't Be Satisfied is it did land in my top 3. We've completed my trilogy. Woo! Inside A. Once again, back-to-back weeks, I Can't Be Satisfied is indeed my second favorite track off the whole album.
It is a good one. It is, again, like you said, it's dark, but it's very much muddy. Again, we talk about the feel of Bus Driver having that feel of guys playing in a dusty bar at 3 a.m. This is at 5 a.m., 2 hours after they stop playing, and they're sharing beers, and they're just getting their feelings out. But in music form. It's that little bit of a difference that really catapults a song into the point where it is. It's just a really, really, really good song, and definitely a standout song from the rest of the side A, with the exception of the first cut.
So before we kick it on into side B and check out the rest of the album here and find out what happens when the blues has a baby and they named it rock and roll, Matthew, I have a question for you that I've been dying to ask you ever since Thanksgiving ended.
Well, that's a few days ago, so it must be a very important question. What is it, Mr. Kurtz?
if the dear listener out there is right now enjoying the content that is being produced to them via you and me, and they want to help support you and me in our ventures to make sure that we keep on keeping on providing excellent content week in, week out, what are some ways that they can help support us and also connect with us outside of just, hearing us talk week in and week out, man?
Well, the easiest way and the simplest way to keep supporting us here on Hey Listen to This is to keep listening to this. We drop our episodes every week on various podcast platforms such as Spotify, Pocket Cast, and Apple Music. We also upload our episodes to YouTube every week, so if you prefer to use YouTube Music or just have videos playing on in the background sometimes, that is a way you can go about that as well. If you really like what you hear and you want to share with a friend, but you're not sure what that friend is or who they are or what their name is or anything of the sort, you can share with multiple people because we are on social media. We are on Blue Sky. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. And we are on Threads. And if you want to share it to your socials and tag us, we would appreciate that. You can either type in the name of our show, which is Hey Listen to This, and you can find our brand new logo, which thank you, Ryan, for that. But also, you can find us under the username ttheylisten. That is TT, the word hey, and the word listen. And that is how you can find us not just on social media, but on YouTube as well. And speaking of TT Hey Listen, if you want to reach out to us directly, but you do not know us directly, we have an email account that you can send us messages to, and that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. If you want to give us some positive feedback, if you want to give us some tips and pointers, or if you want to suggest an album of your choice that we could review in the future. We've done listener requests in the past, and we would love to do it again. Also, if you want to give us some feedback through our social media feeds and our YouTube page, we would welcome that as well. Pleasing the algorithmic gods and liking, comment, subscribing. You know how it goes in 2025, even though we're just under a month away from 2026. But to those of you who have done those things so far, listening, liking, commenting, subscribing, emailing us, etc., throughout these first 100 plus episodes, thank you. Again, we just two guys, sponsor free, talking about music, and we love doing it. So we love the fact that you're along with the ride for us. And as always, Ryan, I thank you for being a wonderful co-host throughout this musical journey we've taken.
And right back at you, man. Like I love all the avenues that we've gone down together. Like, it's thanks to you that I've checked out bands like Toledo, and also like checking out bands like Jellyfish, the Turtles, like countless amount of records that you've brought my way, and I've been like, what, I can dig this. I can dig this, man.
Likewise, you've introduced me to bands such as Bright Eyes, Bjork, even when we started out with bands like Black Country New Road, like I never would have found them if not for doing this podcast. That's a great album through and through. Again, check out those episodes if you want to. We had a good time. But yeah, I very much appreciate what it is that we're doing. And speaking of appreciating things, I am ready to head back into the back half of Hard Again by Muddy Waters from 1977, the album we're covering this week on Hey Listen to This. And we kick off side B with the song entitled The Blues Had a Baby, and they named it Rock and Roll Part 2. What a title.
Yeah, man, what a title indeed. So, yeah, my thoughts about the song here. It's a proper way to get back into the groove of the record as a whole. Like, the intro coming right out of the gate, like, you get that harmonica that is, like, just ripping through it. And I do like that intro with that harmonica. It's a really nice touch. And like, shout out to the harmonica player throughout this whole album here so far. Phenomenal job. Like, it's really got me invested into, like, what the blues can bring the listener as, like, as a genre, as, like, a complete package in its own right. When you have an effective harmonica player like this. So, yeah, the song as a whole has a solid home base. And what I mean by, like, home base, like, you get, like, like two guitar solos that are like like that are like in this song, but like the home base, like I guess like they're like verses or just like the first scare of the song, but like yeah, the in this home base though, like the band's doing like a prototypical like blues beat. It's still good though. Like, it might be a little bit cliche and a little bit run of the mill, but it's still effective. Still great performances. And then you get Water sounding good, singing like decent blues bars. So like, good job there. I really enjoy what's going on there. The guitar solos though, like the first one that's brought to the table here for the listener, I really did enjoy it as a complete package. Like, I enjoy the use of the backing band to build up tension and energy within the solo. Like, I thought that was very effective. The second guitar solo though isn't as developed as the first one, but it's still pretty good. Like, and also like I did enjoy what the piano and harmonica were doing underneath. They were doing some crazy parts. They were refusing to take a backseat to the guitarist there. So shout out to the piano and harmonica player doing great stuff there. And another thing I do want to point out about this song is I do enjoy all the random call outs to different important figures in history in the song. You get Muddy Waters, first of all, calling out himself, saying, like, Muddy said it, the blues got a soul. And then, like, you get several other figures, like, in history, like, shouted out here. You get James Brown, you get Ray Charles, you get John Lee Hooker, you get Otis Redding, and you get Queen Victoria herself, shouted out here. So, yeah, I did enjoy that. That was a very entertaining thing for me to listen to. Yeah, excellent way to kick off side B here, Matt. What is your feelings about this song, though?
My feelings about the blues had a baby and they named it Rock and Roll Part 2. I just want to say that title again because it's fun to say. Pretty much the same as yours. I did dig how the band sounded here, particularly Johnny Winter on guitar and once again Big Eye Smith on the drums. I think they were very pun fully intended instrumental in making this song sound as good as it did. And Muddy's just having fun again. He's, like you say, naming random figures in history, including himself, that led to the beginnings of rock and roll. But it is very fascinating how we've been talking a lot, particularly on Bus Driver and I Can't Be Satisfied, and I'll even throw Jealous Hearted Man in there, where we've been getting these songs that have had a little bit of feeling and a little bit of a bluesy attitude to them. Here it's not really the case. It feels almost like a novelty song in a sense. And that is a fascinating contrast between this song and the rest of the album, because this almost feels like a Brainiac type of song. Not to say that you can't have brains to feel, because you do, but this feels almost like they're talking about rock and roll in a way that guys like Paul McCartney or Pete Townshend would do, like very intricately researched and put into a 12-bar blues beat. Like, they're doing this to sort of merge rock and roll and the blues together. This is not a bad song. I'm very much nitpicking and being a little excessively detailed, probably appropriately so. But all of that to say that you pretty much get what you get in the title, and then you get the historical figures, in case you're wondering who started the blues and got pregnant, had a baby, and called it rock and roll. Interesting that Buddy would say that the blues got pregnant, but that's, again, another discussion for another day. But yeah, I dug this song quite a bit, and I think it is, like you say, a really good sonic feel-good song to swing things back into momentum of side 2.
Yeah. And I like how, like, Muddy, like, he could have, like, copied and pasted like this kind of song throughout the whole record and, like, call it a day. But I like the palette that's being brought to the listener here, and, like, for this to be the opener to side B, I almost want to say like that was maybe a little bit purpose, like it was done with purpose, in terms of like just getting the listener back into the groove. But speaking about getting back into the groove, are you ready to go deep down in Florida with the next track here called Deep Down in Florida?
Absolutely. Way deep down in Florida. Possibly to Key West or Miami or somewhere that far south. Anyways, deep down in Florida, it slows things down significantly, but it does not soften anything up. Like, this is just some old school, slow down, burn through the speakers blues. And it just sounds so good. Like, this is one of those songs where you don't have to pay attention for a second and enjoy what it is that you're listening to, because it just feels like it feels like the blues in a very typical sense. And again, we're going into the 12 bar mode, so not surprising that that's how it feels. But everyone just sounds so good. The harmonica sounds good, the drums sound good, the guitar sounds good, Buddy Waters himself sounds good. And looking up the lyrics to this song, like, I was kind of surprised to find out how not bluesy these were either. Like, again, we've talked about heartbreak and cheating and possible murder. Thank you for pointing that out, Ryan. On songs earlier in this album, where here you get a song about Muddy just saying, hey, I'm going to go down to Florida, going to put my toes in the sand, and I'm going to be happy because it's sunny outside. Like, that's a great sentiment. Kind of odd to put it on a blues song, because that's almost something you would hear from like a, something like a Jimmy Buffett or a Jack Johnson, the singer, not the overpaid defenseman. And to hear Muddy sing about it, it just feels it almost feels as warm as being deep down in Florida would be. Like, you can imagine him like being on a porch with, sandals on and a fedora and, a button-down shirt, just sitting and relaxing while a song like this plays in the background, because, again, that's all this song's about, is just relaxing on a beach, which, is very nice. Did not land in my top 3, but this was definitely one of those songs where it elevated itself just on how pure of a blues it felt for me. So it was a good time.
And I'm right there with you. Like, similar to I Want to Be Loved, like, the thing that kind of really stuck with me about Deep Down in Florida is just that swampiness feeling that you get in the song. It is so thick. Very much like being in Florida itself. I mean, like, I've only been there on vacations. I've never lived down there, thankfully. I mean, that's no shot at anybody who lives in Florida and is a listener to us. I respect you guys. You guys have a pretty good. You have a pretty good set of hockey teams down there in Tampa and the Florida Panthers. So, but outside of, like, taking shots at Florida though, and the feeling that you get in the song with the instrumentation, just that drunken guitar intro is just so good, and I just love how you get several moments in this album here so far where you get that drunkenness where, like, they're not so much focused on being on beat, they're just really embracing that feel. So very much in the blues, very much in the vein, very much executed very well. And also, like, one other, like, contrast that I really did enjoy, you talk about that harmonica in the song here, like, it again is going crazy in the background, and I absolutely love it. It is just really great. And I also love the contrast that you get with that drunken beat and that swampy kind of beat, but then also you get that harmonica going crazy on top of it. Like, it's just so good. I love that contrast. It's so good to my ears. And one critique I do have about the song, and probably what made it not land in a top 3 spot here for me, is the guitar solo towards the end isn't all that developed, and it kind of gets lost in the drunken beat. Like, it's almost like overpowered So yeah, that's the only critique I have about the song and also the album here so far. But yeah, it's a good song. The song's very much about going down to Florida, like you illustrated. But I do appreciate the song nonetheless.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a sort of a cruise control type of song for the band. I don't think, like you say, they're trying to flash their chops or really even do that, but it does have that down home feel that really sort of makes the song just so pleasant to listen to. And speaking of swampy feel, Ryan, I will kick it to you for the penultimate track on Hard Again, which is Cross-Eyed Cat.
Yeah, the penultimate track here, Cross-Eyed Cat. Yeah, another decent song. One thing I do want to talk right out of the gate is the concept of what is the cross-eyed cat that Muddy is singing about here. So, like, for me, I took it as Muddy is declaring, like, in this song that he has to leave his woman because she is living with a cross-eyed cat, quote unquote, another man. So I kind of like that little, like, backhanded, like, insult to, like, that man who is causing his woman to be dishonest. So yeah, also that's kind of weird that she's living with another man, but that isn't Muddy. But anyways, I'm not trying to poke holes at the narrative here. I'm just here to enjoy the song. And aspects about the song that I really do enjoy is, again, that harmonica player is doing really good parts here. I do like how the part that's being executed in the home base section of the song, and the first solo here in the song is going to the harmonica, so the harmonica, and it's pretty good slash solid. And I do like the guitar part that is executed in the second verse. I thought that was executed pretty well, pretty unique. The second solo in the song does belong to said guitarist, and it's pretty solid, nothing too flashy. But yeah, I do appreciate it, what it's doing there, and that gives way to a piano solo. But that piano solo is just going fucking nuts, like on the keys. Like it's so good. I do appreciate what's going on there, and also shout out to the drummer. They are executing excellent parts throughout the song. Like the performance there is pretty solid. And then the next final solo is another guitar solo, which I do like better than the prior guitar solo. Like, it's so much more developed, and it actually kind of shows off like some decent skill, but keeping within the nature and the rootness of, like, blues itself. So yeah, I did appreciate what Cross-Eyed Cat had to bring to the table. It's a great song. I do like the various solos that's showcased throughout. Decent song, man. What's your thoughts on Cross-Eyed Cat?
So my thoughts on Cross-Eyed Cat. First of all, I'd mentioned that it definitely has a swampy feel, much like Deep Down in Florida. But I would say it's even swampier because, much like we got with I Can't Be Satisfied, it takes the traditional blues standard of the 12 bars and switches it into a straight 4/4 time. Like, it's not swingy. It's very much da 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 da. But what they fill in between the da 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 is wild. Like, the riff that James Cotton is doing on the harmonica alone is very much driving the very southern barbecue flavor of this track. And he's just going nuts. His solo goes nuts. Muddy sounds like Muddy in all his hilarity, and I'm glad you brought up the lyrics, because I had it wasn't until the third time I really picked up on what the lyrics were, and once I did, they were hilarious to me. Like, it's 2025. Cat humor has been a thing for like 2 decades now, so you could probably envision, like if you took this song straight and considered Muddy talking about a cross-eyed cat that's climbing up on the walls every time that a man comes into the door or he comes into the door and goes crazy. Like, it's funny, but when you imagine that as to be another human being, it gets even funnier. Like, if you just imagine a cross-eyed dude climbing up walls whenever somebody else comes home, like, that's just a wonderful vision of the wrongest order. So Muddy just sounds like he's having a good time and having fun with it, which he should be. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that the piano solo was as fire as it was, because we have not mentioned, or at least I have not mentioned, the pianist's name yet, a guy by the name of Pinetop Perkins. And he's had a good album performance so far, but he really stood out on this track. Like, his first solo was great, and then he just went wild on the second solo, and you're just like, man, this is just amazing. Johnny Winter sounds good, the band sounds good, but Muddy being Muddy, the lyrics being funny, James Cotton playing harmonica like his life depended on it, and Pinetop Perkins trying to top him in that category. This track stood out quite a bit for me. And lo and behold, we have completed my top 3, with Crosseyed Cat finishing in second place.
Let's go! All the Cross-Eyed Cats out there, celebrate by climbing up walls right now. I'm very glad that you did enjoy this song, though, because it is a very good song, and that just made me so psyched for some reason. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad, man. It is a fun time. Again, I know Mannish Boy is easily my favorite track, but I would say if someone else is like, okay, but what else would you recommend off of this track? This will be my backup, because Cross-Eyed Cat is it is down home, funky, funny blues in just all its glory.
So, with that being said, I think it's time to bring this album here on home and shuffle in to the last song off the whole album, and that song is Little Girl. Matthew, you are not a little girl, but the floor is yours.
Well, I thank you for that. That was an interesting transition, but I'm used to it by now. So Little Girl closing out this album, and once again, like Deep Down in Florida, we slow things down a little bit, and we go back to a very slow swing. And at this point, the band's just in cruise control. Like, everything sounds just so good once again. Muddy, particular, when he's yelping, "Little girl," like, he is basically proving, hey, I'm 64 years old, and I can still sing with more heart and passion than guys half my age. And he's been proving that all album long. He does it one more time here. And he sounds very, very impassioned. Same can be said about James Cotton. His harmonica is laying down a mouth masterpiece, which could be a good name for Neil C.C. Rega's next album, but that's another discussion for another day. Or maybe his greatest hits, who knows. But yeah, James Cotton sounds great. Johnny Winter's just doing Johnny Winter things, sounding good on guitar. And for the second track in a row, Pinetop Perkins is basically trying to one-up James Cotton and steal the show as best he can, because that piano solo, once again, is ridiculous. He is basically just trying to put his name in the record books, and he does a very, very, very good job with it. But aside from that, I really don't have a whole lot to say about Little Girl, because it's basically the same thing I have to say about Deep Down Florida, which is it's simple, slow, good stuff blues, and you really can't help but appreciate it for what it is.
And for me, like, a couple of the things that I did appreciate about the track, like, again, like, for me, like, it just seems like for me, like, I've been attracted to the harmonicist throughout the whole album here. Like, it's funny, like, how, like, throughout certain reviews, like, I just highlight certain instrumentalists, and I'm like, you know what? You are the MVP. So for me, the MVP of this record is not Mr. Muddy Waters himself. It's the harmonica player. So, but yeah, like here in Little Girl, the harmonica once again is going crazy in the background, and I just love again how it's like counteracting all like otherwise a chill blues beat. Like I love that dichotomy there. It's so good, so effective. The first solo in the track here does belong to the guitars, and it's pretty solid. But almost like the harmonica again is like it almost overpowers the guitar solo. Like it's just like it's refusing to take a backseat to it. I agree with you. The way that Muddy sounds here vocally is just so good. I just like the way that he says little girl after that instrumental break, just bringing the listener back into the main groove of the song. Like just so effective, so like, attention grabbing. I don't want to say captivating. It does bring the song back and listener back in an effective fashion. Then we give the next solo to the harmonica player, and it's so fucking good. And then after that, the third solo that you highlighted in your review about the track does belong to the pianist, and it fucking rips. Like I agree with you, it's so good. And then after that piano solo is done, the guitar jumps right back in. I just love how Waters acts as a hype man for the soloist. Again, I love that, and it's been used actually throughout like a couple different moments off the album as a whole. And then, like again, I can't stress enough how much that harmonica player is just fucking ripping underneath that last solo. Like it's just so good. And lyrics don't really matter here because the instrumentals are really just kicking ass and taking names. But this is very much a sexy song. Like you can read the lyrics on your own accord. Like there wasn't really anything that really got me. Like highlighting, being like I have to talk about this set of lyrics. Like it's basically a horny song through and through. But yeah, Little Girl maybe could have been a top 3 track for me, but like I think the feeling that I got with I Want to Be Loved with it, like they just kind of like hokey jokey kind of beat was just so captivating for me that I had to make that my third favorite track. But I did appreciate Little Girl nonetheless.
My final thought on Little Girl is kind of in the title itself because we've heard throughout the entire rock and roll history, whether it's the Beatles, the Stones, or the Kinks, or bands like especially Led Zeppelin, where, the concept of little girl for guys in their 30s and 20s might be a little on the side. But it makes it interesting with Muddy Waters because, again, he is 64 or at the very least 63 recording this album. So to him, a little girl might be someone in their 40s or in their 30s, or he might be saying it to someone who's literally 2 years younger than him and saying, "Ha, you're the little one. What do you think of that?" And it does add that layer of sort of cunningness to it that I think is a bit of an interesting footnote.
So speaking of interesting footnotes here, man, I can't help to notice that we have reached the end of the album here. So, yeah, only one thing left to say.
We did it, man.
We did it. Not even, I can't even like organically, make a pun off of the album title.
I know which one you were going for. I know which one you were going for is the one I would have gone with, but I understand you swaying away from that.
Yeah, sometimes I'm self-deprecating, but I'm just going to say that we've dove into a very foundational blues album from Muddy Waters, indeed called Hard Again, and we came out the other side better meant for it for one reason or another. So I'm going to go first in terms of my overall thoughts and feelings about the album as a whole. So for me, like I said at the beginning of the review here, like I am a blues novice. Like I've always been blues curious in terms of as a fan of music as a whole. I mean, hell, I have a podcast with you. We've done over 100 reviews here so far. But yeah, for me, this album was a very solid blues album to dive into. It had the potential of having that little Richard effect where Muddy could have done copied and pasted Mannish Boy throughout the whole record, but he doesn't do that. You get several different fun tracks. Mannish Boy is a kick-ass song for a reason. It's a 12-bar blues done to perfection. But you also get songs like I Can't Be Satisfied, Crosseyed Cat. You also get I Want to Be Loved. Many different variations on the blues and different styles of music as a whole. So I do appreciate everything that was being brought to the table here. Um, I'm walking away from the album with the feeling that if anyone was looking for a album to check out, in terms of if they want to check out a blues album, this would be an album that I would highly recommend as a whole, and it's an album that I can see myself going back to multiple times in the future. So, in terms of an overall rating, I'm giving Hard Again by Muddy Waters a solid 8 out of 10.
And for me, my thoughts on Hard Again pretty much echo yours, where I just feel like this is one of those albums, because like you, I'm a bit of a blues novice, but ultimately, I can listen to this album and appreciate it for its simplicity. Because on a simplistic note, this is just a group of dudes playing simple music, but playing it to the best of their ability. And Muddy Waters, again, in his mid-60s, is singing it to the best of his ability. Again, whether it's the hardness of Mannish Boy, the playfulness of I Can't Be Satisfied or Deep Down Florida, or the combination of both with Cross-Eyed Cat, there's not a wasted note on this entire record. Johnny Winter, who helped co-produce this thing, sounds great. James Cotton on harp sounds amazing. The drummer sounds great. The piano sounds great. And again, Muddy Waters is just proven that he can do this just as bad as anybody else. And you mentioned this as an establishing record for the blues. I would say this is almost a reestablishing record, because again, this is 77. We're in the era of the Sex Pistols, the Clash, Fleetwood Mac, the rise of disco. And so for an album like this to sort of come out of left field and establish itself as proof that the blues can still sound great was not a simplistic feat, but very much one they accomplished. So much like you, if someone was listening to the blues or wanted to start listening to the blues, I would very much recommend this album. So my rating for Hard Again is going to be a solid 9 out of 10.
So you gave the album a 9. I gave it an 8. That makes the math pretty simple. That averages our scores out to be an 8.5 out of 10, because
Math
works for everyone. It does not discriminate. It does not hate. It's just numbers. Get over it, bitch. Anyways, so and for me, my next album recommendation here, I'm gonna just keep it simple. There is a artist who has been heavily influenced by Muddy Waters as a whole, and that would be Jimi Hendrix, because he was very much a student of the blues. And the album that I'm going to recommend out of his catalog would be the album from the year of 1968, and that would be Electric Ladyland by the Jimi Hendrix Experience. The song Voodoo Child in that album is very much Muddy Waters inspired in terms of blues and everything like that. And also it's a great album nonetheless. So yeah, Electric Ladyland by the Jimi Hendrix Experience is my next album recommendation.
And my next album recommendation, based off of this, I'm going to go in the same way you are. I'm going to pick a rock record that was heavily influenced by the blues. Actually, there's a couple choices I can make here with this, but I'm going to go with the bluesier of the two, and that is the debut album by Led Zeppelin, featuring some bluesy cuts such as You Shook Me, I'll throw in How Many More Times Is There, I Can't Quit You Baby. Obviously, there's a bit more experimental stuff like Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You and Your Time Is Gonna Come, but if you like blues or are sort of looking into a stepping stone into the blues to listen to the blues, this would be the album to go for. So I'm going to go with Led Zeppelin's debut album as my next album recommendation.
So, ladies and gentlemen, to summarize, our average score for Hard Again by Muddy Waters is an 8.5 out of 10. I recommended Electric Land by the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and Matt recommended the debut album by Led Zeppelin. So check out those albums if you did enjoy Hard Again by Muddy Waters. And if you've gotten to this point in this review and you've not decided to listen to, Hard Again by Muddy Waters, I don't know what else to tell you, man. That's basically our thoughts. So I hope you check out the album. It's a good album, man.
It's a good album, and I think we had a good discussion talking about it. It was fun discussing a blues album for the first time here on the show. Kind of in the same vein as Little Richard, as you mentioned earlier, but I think with a little bit more oomph and a little bit more moxie than the sort of pioneering rock and roll. But then again, what better than pioneering rock and roll than the pioneer of rock and roll in the blues? So with that being said, Ryan, there's one final piece of business left to talk about, and it is now your turn to pick an album. And I don't know if you're finished with your mini-series or not, so I'm just going to let you take the reins and tell us what's next.
So I had to spot check myself. So at the beginning of the miniseries, I said 11 albums, including our 100th full-length review. This album that we're going to be, this review coming up here in the miniseries, in my challenge I threw to myself, it's going to be our 10th review in that series. So we have one more to go after this, and then the miniseries is over. So, and for those of you who are like, hold on, this is my first episode of ever listening to Hey, Listen to This, the miniseries is basically like, me forcing myself to pick albums for us to review that were released prior to the year 2000. So, we've covered the gamut between, Paranoid by Black Sabbath, Spiderland by Slint, a lot of great, records that we've covered here so far. So, for the last two reviews in my miniseries, the last review is going to be picking two albums from a legendary rock group, but we'll get to that choice when we get to it. But in terms of this review we have coming up here next, we're going to go to one last important year that I highlighted for music, and we're going to be covering a genre that we haven't covered in a while, and that would be jazz. So, yeah, I saw your blues, and I decided to raise you with some jazz. So, and that year specifically, because I believe I highlighted it, it is the year of 1959. So, the way I'm going to have you pick between two records here, one might be, pretty transparent, if you know your musical history, which I know you do. The other one might not be as transparent. So I'm just going to have you pick between the colors here. I'm going to give you the colors blue or red.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Just because I haven't listened to it in a while and I know what you're going to be referring to, I'm just going to go with blue.
Ladies and gentlemen, you hear that? That's the sound of a unwritten rule in Hey Listen to This being officially broken for the very first time in our show. In that, we are going to be covering a artist that we've already covered previously in the history of our show here. And that artist is going to be Mr. Miles Davis. And the album that we're going to be covering next week is the one, the only, the album that is indeed kind of blue, in that kind of blue.
Oh, boy. It's been a minute since I've listened to Kind of Blue, but I am very much excited to dive into that record because... We'll get into it more next week, but it's one of the first jazz albums I've really taken the time to listen to, so I'm glad to take some time to listen to it again.
Yeah. And it's an album that I'm pretty familiar with myself. I wrote a college paper on it one time, so that was a lot of fun for me. So, but doing that college paper, it was like an old school kind of you go to the library and you actually read books and you lift stuff from there. it definitely made me feel like, that it definitely made me feel like I'm a man.
But you could be a mannish boy.